Hey, sci-fi fans! Ready to blast off with a science fiction flick that's got a bit of everything? Let's talk Battle Beyond the Stars. Directed by Jimmy T. Murakami and produced by the legendary Roger Corman, this flick is like a sci-fi remix of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai and the Magnificent Seven, complete with mercenaries and a defenseless planet in dire need of some serious saving. Picture this. A peaceful little planet named Akir is just minding its own business when out of nowhere, this tyrant warlord Sador shows up. Played by the badass John Saxon, Sador's packing a starship equipped with the Stellar Converter, a gnarly weapon that can obliterate planets. So the Akir folks send out Shad, this young farmer dude played by Richard Thomas from The Waltons, to round up a posse to save the day. The cast includes Gelt, played by Robert Vaughn. He's an assassin you don't want to mess with. Cowboy. George Peppard brings on the charm as a trucker who's all about the little guys. Nanelia, Darlan Flugel. Say hello to Shad's love interest, a smart and stunning scientist. St. Exmin. Sybil Danning is a powerhouse warrior woman. Thanks to some epic special effects work by James Cameron, yeah, the Avatar guy, and tunes by James Horner, remember Titanic, Battle Beyond the Stars is a visual and auditory treat. Why it's epic, beyond the crazy space battles and quirky crew, this flick beautifully nods to classic Western and samurai films, packing in space opera vibes. Battle Beyond the Stars was Roger Corman's biggest budget flick at the time for New World Pictures, costing $4.5 million and bringing home just over $11 million. Not too shabby, right? Released on September 8, 1980, and with a funky mix of reviews, the film holds a 54% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.5 out of 10 rating on IMDb. Hey movie buffs, have you heard about Return of the Secaucus 7? It's this cool indie film from 1980, directed by John Sayles. It's actually one of the first movies out there to kick off the whole reunion genre. Imagine a bunch of old friends, all political activists back in the 60s, now catching up over a weekend in a New Hampshire house. Sounds like a blast, right? Here's the scoop. These 7 buddies dive deep into how their lives and ideals have changed since their days of youthful rebellion. They were once jailed briefly after a protest in Secaucus, New Jersey. That event ties all their shared past and idealism together, giving the movie its name and a nostalgic edge. Now, let's talk style. Return of the Secaucus 7 has this laid-back, dialogue-heavy approach that feels super intimate and real. It was made on a shoestring budget of about 40 grand, but it doesn't skimp on emotional depth. Before The Big Chill brought us the glitzy, big-budget version of a reunion story, Secaucus 7 was painting an earnest picture with unknown actors and unpretentious storytelling. Critics totally dug it, by the way. It snagged the Best Screenplay Award at the Los Angeles Film Critics Association Awards and got John Sayles a nod for the Writers Guild of America Award. John Sayles himself says the film is pretty much a page out of his own life, inspired by his politically active friends. He loved the indie vibe, focusing on character growth over flashy plot twists. This flick was a game changer for him, proving you don't need big bucks to touch people's hearts with authentic cinema. Return of the Secaucus 7 was released on September 8, 1980. The film holds an 82% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7 out of 10 rating on IMDb. Hey fam, let's chat about a flick you might not have caught yet. Phobia from 1980. This one's a psychological horror thriller directed by none other than John Huston. It's a bit of an oddball in his filmography, but let me break it down for you. So, the story circles around Dr. Peter Ross, a psychiatrist played by Paul Michael Glazer. He's trying out this wild new therapy to cure criminals at a psychiatric hospital of their gnarly phobias by literally throwing their worst fears at them. Sounds intense, right? But things take a dark twist when these patients start to die in freaky ways that eerily match their phobias. Now, despite Huston's heavy hitter reputation, Phobia didn't exactly wow the crowds or critics back in the day. It got slammed for a lackluster script, slow pacing, and not enough edge-of-your-seat moments. Here's something intriguing though. Huston, known for iconic films like The Maltese Falcon and The African Queen, didn't say much about why he picked Phobia. Seems like he was just dipping his toes into the horror pool, maybe looking for a new challenge, or who knows, maybe the guy just needed a paycheck. Behind the scenes, it wasn't smooth sailing, that's for sure. The script got tossed around and rewritten a bunch, so much so that by the end of production, the cast had no idea who the actual killer in the movie was going to be. For more on the troubled production, hit the link in the description for a blow-by-blow on why Phobia has been called a Canadian tax shelter movie. Released back on September 8th, 1980, Phobia kind of just existed. It's not one you'll see topping any horror lists, and it's got some pretty meh scores online. But hey, if you're curious about Huston's odd venture into psychological horror, or you're morbidly curious about just how bad a movie by a legendary director could be, check out Phobia for yourself. Hey movie buffs, let's take a trip down memory lane to 1980 with Jackie Chan's first big leap into Hollywood, The Big Brawl, also known as Battle Creek Brawl. This martial arts action comedy flick was directed by Robert Clouse, the same man who directed Enter the Dragon. So what's the scoop on the movie? Set in the rough and tumble era of the 1930s, The Big Brawl follows the adventures of Jerry Quan, that's Jackie Chan folks, a martial artist who finds himself up against the Chicago mob. When the mobsters threaten his family, they force Jerry to enter a crazy, no-holds-barred fighting tournament called the Battle Creek Brawl. With his slick martial arts skills, Jerry fights not just to win, but to protect his loved ones. Meet the gang. Jackie Chan as the daring Jerry Quan, Jose Ferrer playing the menacing mob boss Mr. Dominici, Christine DeBelle as Nancy, Jerry's sweetheart, Marco as Herbert, Jerry's wise uncle who helps him train. Though The Big Brawl was meant to be Jackie's big break in the US, it didn't quite hit the mark at the box office and got some mixed vibes from the critics. It turns out the director, Robert Clouse, didn't fully tap into Jackie's trademark action style. You know, the one with all the zip, pizzazz, and a dash of comedy. This meant the action scenes we got, while cool, were a bit toned down compared to what Jackie usually pulled off back in Hong Kong. Despite the rocky start, Jackie Chan didn't give up. He eventually captured hearts worldwide in the 90s with smash hits like Rumble in the Bronx and Rush Hour. And The Big Brawl, with all its ups and downs, remains a key part of his journey to stardom. Fun fact, during the making of The Big Brawl, Jackie wasn't too happy. He didn't get much say in the choreography or action sequences, quite a shift from his usual creative control back home. He later shared that he learned a lot from this experience, which helped him navigate and eventually conquer Hollywood. Released on September 10, 1980, The Big Brawl holds a 67% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb. The Exterminator is a 1980 action thriller film directed by James Glickenhaus. The film stars Robert Ginty as John Eastland, a Vietnam War veteran who becomes a vigilante after his best friend, Michael Jefferson, played by Steve James, is brutally attacked by a gang. Plot: the story revolves around Eastland's descent into violent vigilantism after Jefferson is left paralyzed. Consumed with rage and a desire for justice, Eastland embarks on a one-man crusade against the criminal underworld of New York City, taking down gang members, corrupt politicians, and other unsavory characters who exploit the vulnerable. He uses a flamethrower and other brutal methods to exact his revenge, earning him the title The Exterminator from the press and police. The film touches on themes of post-war trauma, urban decay, and revenge. Eastland's character is portrayed as a man broken by his experiences in Vietnam, who channels his skills and anger into a violent vendetta, becoming a dark anti-hero. The film also deals with the frustration of the common common man living in a corrupt society, feeling powerless until they take matters into their own hands. Upon its release, The Exterminator was controversial for its graphic violence and gritty depiction of New York City's crime-ridden streets. The film was criticized for its exploitation elements, but also garnered a cult following for its raw style and extreme action sequences. Some compared it to other vigilante films of the time, such as Death Wish. Legendary film critic Roger Ebert said of The Exterminator, "The Exterminator is a sick example of the almost unbelievable descent into gruesome savagery in American movies." While The Exterminator wasn't a mainstream success, it became a cult favorite, especially among fans of 1980s grindhouse and exploitation cinema. Its depiction of violent justice has been seen as a reflection of the anxieties and social tensions of the era, particularly regarding crime and the aftermath of the Vietnam War. The film's success led to a sequel, Exterminator 2, in 1984. The Exterminator was released on September 19, 1980. The film holds a 38% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb. Hey movie lovers! Have you ever heard of the flick Melvin and Howard? This gem from 1980 is not just any film, it's a comedy drama directed by the incredible Jonathan Demme and penned by the talented Bo Goldman. It's kinda based on this wild true story about a regular Joe named Melvin Dumas. Picture this, Melvin's your typical down-on-his-luck guy from Nevada when bam! He stumbles upon this scruffy old man stranded in the desert back in 1967. And guess who this guy turns out to be? None other than the eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes, or so he says. So here's the scoop. Melvin, played by Paul Le Mat, is just trying to keep his family afloat when he picks up what he thinks is just another old man, played by Jason Robards. They end up having this unforgettable night cruising through the desert. Melvin drops him off and doesn't think much about it, until Hughes kicks the bucket and Melvin finds out the old man might have actually been Hughes and left him a chunk of his fortune in a handwritten will. Yup, you heard it right. What follows is a wild ride full of courtroom drama and everyone wondering if this will is the real deal. Melvin and Howard takes us on a roller coaster ride between Melvin's everyday struggles and this insane twist of fate with Hughes's will. It's all about the American dream, the randomness of luck, and the bitter taste of disillusionment. Critics totally dug it, and it even bagged 2 Oscars, Best Supporting Actress for Mary Steenburgen, who rocks it as Melvin's wife, Linda, and Best Original Screenplay. Jonathan Demme's unique touch shines, making the film a quirky yet touching piece of true Americana that leaves you with the question, did you believe Melvin? Despite not being a blockbuster hit, Melvin and Howard has become a cult classic, cherished for its heartwarming, quirky portrayal of an average dude caught in an absolutely bonkers situation. It brilliantly mixes fact and fiction, making it a standout story about the bizarre twists life can throw at you. So, if you're in for a movie night that's a little out of the ordinary, give Melvin and Howard a watch. You won't regret it. Melvin and Howard was released on September 19, 1980. The film holds a 92% positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb. Are you ready to dive into an old-school horror movie that mixes laughs with chills? Let's talk about Mother's Day, directed by Charles Kaufman and brought to us by the Kings of Camp, Trauma Entertainment. This flick is a wild mashup of slasher horror with a hearty dose of dark comedy. Picture this, a wicked mum and her 2 twisted sons stirring up trouble in a story filled with revenge. What's it about? Imagine this, Trina, Abby, and Jackie, 3 college buddies, decide to catch up over a camping trip in the deep, dark woods. Sounds like fun, right? Well, not so much when they bump into Ike and Adley, 2 bonkers brothers who, along with their manipulative mum, have a distasteful hobby of kidnapping and torturing unsuspecting campers. The boy's mother is the ringleader, egging her sons on to up the ante in a terrifying survival game. But don't worry, our girls aren't going down without a fight, leading to an all-out, no-holds-barred showdown. The vibe, Mother's Day digs digs into some pretty heavy stuff like crazy family ties and the will to survive, all wrapped up in gruesomely over-the-top violence that'll make you squirm and chuckle. It's got its fair share of shock, a sprinkle of satire, and just enough absurdity to keep you glued. How did it go down? Back when it first hit the screens, Mother's Day had folks split because of its raw edge and wild content. While some shrugged it off as too brutal, others gave it props for its gutsy take on twisted family antics and dark humor. As time went on, this freaky flick found its crowd, drawing in lovers of classic trauma madness and 80s horror buffs. In 2010, the movie got a fresh spin in a remake by Darren Lynn Bousman, who switched things up with a serious tone tackling a home invasion, stepping away from the original's campy pulse. Fun fact, director Charles Kaufman is the bro of Lloyd Kaufman, Trauma's big boss. Unlike Trauma's usual off-the-wall fare, Charles threw personal fears and observations into Mother's Day, making it a standout with a more sarcastic bite. Released on September 19, 1980, Mother's Day holds its ground with a 46% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a score of 5.3 on IMDb. Hey movie buffs! Dive into the emotional depths of Ordinary People, a true cinematic gem directed by the legendary Robert Redford. This gripping drama, which hit the screens on September 19, 1980, is a powerful exploration of family drama and personal struggles. Starring the incredible Timothy Hutton, Donald Sutherland, Mary Tyler Moore, and Judd Hirsch, it's a film that's sure to tug at your heartstrings. Picture this. Timothy Hutton plays Conrad Jarrett, a teenager who's overwhelmed with guilt after the tragic death of his big brother, Buck, in a sailing accident. Surviving a suicide attempt, Conrad returns from a psychiatric hospital only to feel more disconnected from his mom, Beth, played by the fantastic Mary Tyler Moore. She's pulling away, bitter and cold, while his dad, played by Donald Sutherland, battles his own emotional scars. As Conrad tries to heal, he leans on his psychiatrist, Dr. Berger, Judd Hirsch, to untangle his feelings and patch things up at home. Behind the scenes, did you know Donald Sutherland wasn't the first pick for the role of Calvin? Originally, it was supposed to be Gene Hackman, but he stepped back over some pay disputes. And here's a fun bit from Michael J. Fox's autobiography. He bombed his audition for this movie in front of Robert Redford himself. Talk about tough breaks. The cast had their share of personal tragedies too. Timothy Hutton had just lost his dad before filming began, and tragically, right after the film came out, Mary Tyler Moore's son also passed away. Despite a modest budget of $6.4 million, Ordinary People made a splash at the box office, raking in $94 million worldwide. And get this, the author of the original novel, Judith Guest, was super wary about handing over the film rights to Hollywood. It took a heart-to-heart with Redford and 18 more months of talks before she gave the green light. She even helped out during the pre-production phase. Critical reception. At its release, the critics were mostly in awe. An extraordinary movie, praised Bill Cosford of Night Newswire. Connie Wilson of the Moline Dispatch Argus was all about Robert Redford's stunning directorial debut. Not everyone was sold, though. Stephen Farber of Los Angeles found it a bit bland, but others, like Renee Keentz and Dale Stevens, couldn't stop talking about its powerful portrayal and deep insights. Film critics Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert were also on board, applauding the performances and the character development. Awards and recognitions. Ordinary People didn't just impress audiences, it swept the awards too. It bagged 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Robert Redford. Timothy Hutton snagged Best Supporting Actor, and Alvin Sargent took home the award for Best Adapted Screenplay. Plus, it scored big at the Golden Globes and the New York Film Critics Circle Award. Ratings fast forward to today, and Ordinary People still holds a strong 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb. Clearly, it's a film that stands the test of time, so why not revisit this classic or check it out if you haven't yet? Ordinary People is more than just a movie. It's a profound journey through the complexities of the human spirit. Hey, movie buffs, ready to dive into some retro cinema fun? Let's chat about Super Fuzz, or as the Italians call it, Poliziotto Super Più. This gem from 1980 is a superhero action comedy that's all kinds of crazy and hilarious, directed by none other than Sergio Corbucci. Imagine this: Dave Speed, just your average Miami cop, strolls into a seemingly dull situation to hand out a traffic ticket, right? But no, he ends up smack bang in the middle of a NASA experiment with an experimental nuclear missile going off. What's the result? Superpowers, of course. Yeah, Dave gets hit with these funky radiation vibes that give him super strength, the power to zip around faster than a speeding bullet, a shield of invulnerability, psychic powers, and even flight. But there's a hilarious twist. Whenever he spots anything red, poof, his powers vanish. Dave, played by the charismatic Terence Hill, now tries to juggle fighting crime with his quirky powers that come and go. And let's not forget his skeptical partner, Sergeant Willie Dunlop, brought to life by the one and only Ernest Borgnine. These two get into all sorts of goofy situations while trying to bust a counterfeiting ring. This flick mixes up slapstick, superhero shenanigans with a laid-back, fun feel that's so typical of those wacky Italian comedies from back in the day. The critics? Super Fuzz wasn't for them, it's for the kids. Although jokey headlines like Fuzz Not Quite Super or Super Fuzz Less Than Super Comedy are, at least, in the spirit of this goofy, slapstick comedy for kiddies. Super Fuzz was released sometime in 1981. I know it's not in order, but we didn't know that until we'd already finished this script mostly, so deal with it. The film has 14% critics score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb, and the movie is streaming now for free on Tubi. Divine Madness, a cinematic celebration of Bette Midler, released on the 26th of September 1980. Divine Madness presents an electrifying showcase of Bette Midler's dynamic stage presence, directed by the accomplished Michael Ritchie. In this film, Midler captivates audiences with her versatile performances, including renditions of The Rose, I Shall Be Released, and Leader of the Pack. Backstory of the film. According to Bette Midler, this is my time capsule version of my show. The film comprises footage from 3 consecutive concerts held on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of February, with additional scenes filmed on a closed set on the 16th. It features the legendary R&B singer Luther Vandross, who performed as a backup singer prior to his rise to solo stardom. Director Michael Ritchie recounted the challenges involved in the production, notably Midler's initial hesitancy regarding the concert performances that were integral to the film. Despite her reservations and health challenges, including a bout of bronchitis during her first show, Midler delivered a series of successful performances. In a 1980 interview with esteemed film critic Roger Ebert, Bette Midler expressed her plans to retire from live performing to focus on her acting career. However, she has since returned to the stage, notably with a Las Vegas residency in 2012. Box office and critical reception, Divine Madness garnered $5.3 million at the box office. Remarkably, Midler was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Comedy, an unusual feat for a concert film. The critics' reception at the time was mixed. Joseph Gelmis regarded the film as a step backward for Midler, following her Oscar-nominated debut in 1979's The Rose. Conversely, Lawrence Devine of the Detroit Free Press praised the film, describing it as bawdy Midler at her best, and critic Dale Stevens echoed this sentiment, lauding Midler as one of the finest performers in show business. Today, Divine Madness is celebrated by modern critics, maintaining a 100% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and receiving a user rating of 7 out of 10 on IMDb. Experience the magic and the madness of Bette Midler in Divine Madness, a testament to her enduring appeal and unparalleled talent as a performer. Hopscotch, a cinematic delight. Directed by Ronald Neame and penned by Brian Forbes, along with the author of the book that inspired the movie, Brian Garfield, Hopscotch is a wild ride featuring stellar performances by Walter Matthau, Glenda Jackson, Sam Waterston and Ned Beatty. Since its initial release on the 26th of September 1980, this film has continued to captivate audiences with its intricate narrative and compelling character portrayals. Plot overview. In the thrilling narrative of Hopscotch, CIA operative Miles Kendig, masterfully portrayed by Walter Matthau, executes a daring maneuver by allowing KGB agent Yaskov, played by Herbert Lom, to elude capture. This decision leads to severe reprimands from his superior, portrayed by Ned Beatty, who then threatens Kendig with imminent forced retirement. Ingeniously outmaneuvering his employer, Kendig annihilates his records and absconds to Austria. There, he begins to compose a memoir that promises to expose the clandestine operations of his former agency. The impending publication sends shockwaves through the CIA, prompting a fervent pursuit across international borders, woven with intrigue and suspense. Critical reception in 1980. Upon its release, Hopscotch was met with diverse critical opinions. Richard Friedman extolled the dynamic interaction between Walter Matthau and Glenda Jackson, drawing comparisons to iconic Hollywood pairings such as Tracy and Hepburn. In contrast, Tim Sacco of the Des Moines Register critiqued the film for a perceived lack of charm and originality. Nevertheless, Desmond Ryan acclaimed the film as a clever satire of CIA routines, while Chris Gladden hailed it as a triumphant project. Current critic evaluations. Several decades after its debut, Hopscotch has maintained a considerable following, evidenced by an 81% rating from critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a commendable 7.1 out of 10 score from IMDb users. This sustained positive reception highlights the film's significant impact and enduring allure, affirming its status as a remarkable contribution to the genre of cinematic comedy. Hey film buffs, let's dive into In God We Trust, a totally off-the-wall 1980 comedy directed by the one and only Marty Feldman, who not only directed but stars in the flick too. This movie takes a cheeky jab at organised religion, turning faith and its commercialisation on its head. So here's the scoop. The plot follows Brother Ambrose, played by Feldman himself, who's this sweet, naive monk. He's been living in a monastery all his life, right? But when the monastery hits hard times, they send Ambrose into the big, bad city to scrounge up some cash. And man, does he get his eyes opened. He runs into Armageddon T. Thunderbird, a slick televangelist played by Andy Kaufman, and Dr. Sebastian Melmoth, a smooth-talking atheist conman played by Peter Boyle. Along the way, Ambrose teams up with Mary, a kind-hearted prostitute played by Louise Lasser, who helps him navigate through all the craziness. The film mixes slapstick, witty banter, and sharp satire as Ambrose tries to reconcile his simple faith with the hustle and hypocrisy he finds in the city. And let's talk themes. In God We Trust doesn't shy away from the big stuff: faith, greed, and what really counts as moral. It's a wild ride that pokes fun at how religion can sometimes become just another way to make a quick buck, contrasting Ambrose's pure heart with the greedy characters he meets. Cast-wise, aside from Feldman, Kaufman, Boyle and Lasser, we even get a cameo from Richard Pryor as God. Yep, you heard that right. Speaking of Andy Kaufman, Feldman told the Associated Press that Kaufman reminded him of Peter Sellers and that Kaufman never changed his costume and never broke character on set. Critics were not kind, with Siskel and Ebert calling In God We Trust one of the worst movies of 1980. Other critics complained that the film was too lowbrow and uninspired. Few had anything nice to say about Feldman's all-star comedy. In God We Trust was released on September the 26th, 1980. The film has no score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Hey movie buffs! Throwback to a classic hitting the screens back on September 26, 1980, My Bodyguard. Directed by the talented Tony Bill and penned by Alan Ormsby, this flick packs a punch with young stars Chris Makepeace and Adam Baldwin, alongside Matt Dillon, Joan Cusack, and a sneaky appearance by Jennifer Beals. This film marked the big screen debut for a bunch of actors, including Adam Baldwin, Joan Cusack, and Jennifer Beals, plus Dean Devlin and Paul Quant. They all started their Hollywood journey right here. Dive into the life of Clifford Peach, played by Chris Makepeace. He's this sensitive, well-off teen who's new to school and, you guessed it, becomes bully magnet, courtesy of Melvin Moody, Matt Dillon. Clifford's had enough and ends up hiring the brooding, tough kid Ricky Linderman, Adam Baldwin, as his bodyguard. While this setup initially solves his bully problem and sparks an unlikely friendship, things start to get rocky. As Clifford faces his tormentor once again, Ricky has his own demons to battle. Critics loved it. Desmond Ryan from the Philadelphia Inquirer said it portrays the universal dilemma of adolescence, not sex, but how to escape the school bully, with touching fidelity. And Roger Ebert called it a small treasure, a flick about real characters, tapping into memories that resonate with most of us. The movie was shot right in the heart of Chicago, with Lakeview High School doubling as the fictional Fleer HS. Even the hotel Clifford calls home, managed by his dad, is none other than the real-life Ambassador East. Director Tony Bill shared, "That's why I made My Bodyguard. I'm hopeful that there's an audience out there for movies about real people." Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, July 28, 1980. So if you're in the mood for a blast from the past that's both touching and nostalgic, make sure to check out My Bodyguard. It's not just a movie, it's a slice of adolescent life. My Bodyguard was released on September the 26th, 1980. The film holds a 79% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb. Hey there, movie buffs! Have you ever heard about the 1980 film Resurrection? Directed by the talented Daniel Petrie and penned by Louis John Carlino, this film stars the incredible Ellen Burstyn, alongside Sam Shepard, Richard Farnsworth, and Eva Le Gallienne. You can't miss this one, people. So what's it all about? Imagine this. Edna, played by Ellen Burstyn, survives a horrific car crash that kills her husband and leaves her paralyzed. She heads back to Kansas to live with her grandparents. On her way, she discovers she's got this bizarre ability to heal people just by touching them. Pretty wild, right? As she starts healing folks left and right, she catches the eye of the town, including a young man played by Sam Shepard, who falls head over heels for her. But there's a twist. He's got this intense obsession with religion, and Edna, she's a total agnostic. It's a film that digs deep into themes of faith, healing, and love. The performances are top-notch too. Ellen Burstyn and Eva Le Gallienne even snagged Oscar nominations for their roles. Now, let's talk about the critics. Sure, the movie has its ups and downs. Some say the direction could have been better. Others love the powerful performances by Shepard and Burstyn. It's got a bit of everything: drama, mystery, and a touch of romance. But here's a fun fact. Resurrection is actually one of Ellen Burstyn's favourite films. She even helped rewrite the script with Carlino after initially hating it. They spent days brainstorming, drawing inspiration from Native American healers and various readings. And did you know, this was only the second feature film role for stage legend Eva Le Gallienne? She was 80 years old when she earned her Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Resurrection has a solid 83% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.1 rating on IMDb. It wasn't a big hit at the box office though, earning just under $4 million on a $7 million budget. So if you're in the mood for a film that blends real-life drama with a touch of the supernatural, give Resurrection a watch. It's a unique piece from the early 80s that really makes you think. Check it out and see why it holds a special place in Ellen Burstyn's heart. Resurrection was released on September the 26th, 1980. The film holds an 83% critics rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb. The film isn't available on streaming rental services, but it is available in a fan upload on YouTube. Find the link in the description of this video. Hey movie buffs! Get ready to dive into the quirky world of Woody Allen with his 1980 flick, Stardust Memories. Directed and written by the man himself, Woody also stars in this intriguing film alongside Charlotte Rampling, Sharon Stone, and Daniel Stern. This one hit the screens on September 26, 1980, and it's been a talker ever since. So, what's the scoop? Well, imagine being a famous comedian and then deciding to get all serious with your art. That's exactly what Sandy Bates, played by Woody, is going through. He's swapping out his slapstick laughs for some deep, artsy black and white films. But guess what? His fans are not having it. As Sandy juggles criticism from every corner, be it fans, critics, or his love interests, he's questioning everything. Budget-wise, Woody splashed out $10 million on this project and just about made it back with a box office return of $10.1 million. Talk about breaking even. Now, if you're itching to watch it, you're in luck. Stardust Memories is streaming for free on Pluto TV. Go check it out. The critics had their say, of course. Roger Ebert wasn't too thrilled, calling it a bit of a letdown, but Janet Maslin from the New York Times found it super provocative and revealing. It seems like this movie divides opinions, making it a must-watch if you're into films that stir up debate. For a little extra on Woody Allen, around the time Stardust Memories came out, he dropped a book called Side Effects that rolls with similar themes. And just to clear the air, Woody himself has said, despite what people think, Stardust Memories isn't a peek into his diary. It's all about a character in crisis, not a personal tell-all. Ratings? Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 66%, and IMDb has it sitting at 7.210, not too shabby. Stardust Memories is definitely a standout piece in Woody Allen's vast filmography, capturing a crucial turn in his career under the relentless gaze of his audience. Whether you love it, hate it, or are just plain confused by it, this movie's a conversation starter. Hey movie buffs, have you checked out Without Warning? Released back on September 26, 1980, this flick was directed by Graydon Clark and pulled together by a creative team including Lynn Freeman, Daniel Grodnick, Ben Nett, and Steve Mathis. The cast is pretty epic, with the likes of Jack Palance, Martin Landau, Cameron Mitchell, and Neville Brand lighting up the screen. So, what's the scoop on the plot? Picture this, the worst blind date ever. Sandy, played by Tara Nutter, and Greg, played by Christopher S. Nelson, get set up on a date to a lake by their mutual friends. At the lake, the friends disappear, victims of an alien hunting humans in a nearby forest. The alien invader slings some strange goop at people, and let's just say it doesn't end well for those who get hit. Jack Palance plays a helpful gas station owner, while Martin Landau is unhinged as a war veteran who thinks Sandy and Greg are part of a globalist conspiracy with the alien. Without Warning hasn't exactly been a critic's darling. Linda Gross from the Los Angeles Times called it a tacky rip-off of Alien, and Jim Wright from The Record dubbed it a strong contender for Stinko Movie of the Year because of its low budget and less than stellar production values. Kirk Honeycutt from the Daily Times Advocate went as far as to describe it as a brain-damaged movie. Ouch. Despite the tough reviews, the cast is interesting because it's packed with actors who usually play the bad guys. But here's the twist. You got to figure out who's really the villain. Graydon Clark, the guy behind the director's lens, found this mix thrilling. And check this out, the alien's creepy head was the handiwork of special effects genius Rick Baker, whipped up in his kitchen on a shoestring budget. Plus, this movie was a stepping stone for David Caruso and one of the last gigs for Tara Nutter before she swapped acting for art. You can peep her work at taranutter.com. For a bit of fun, the movie's promoters handed out branded fly swatters to film critics, even though flies have nothing to do with the film. They were meant to swat away the aliens' primary weapon. Pretty cheeky, right? Made with a modest budget of $150,000, with half of that just to cover the salaries of Jack Palance and Martin Landau. The entire production was wrapped up in just 3 weeks. Without Warning isn't up for streaming rental just yet, but you can catch a fan-uploaded version for free. Just hit up the link in the comments of this video description.